Hey there, cherries, it's Jessica here with you today, and I will be showing you how I like to create alcohol ink flowers. Now, this isn't like a super realistic flower, it's a little abstract, but I think they're really pretty and make perfect backgrounds for cards, or I could even make a larger one on a layout. And I just think it's a really fun technique and something else that you can use alcohol inks with. I am working with just a few basic alcohol ink products. The first one is Yupo paper, or some non-porous surface. Yupo paper is pretty much like a plastic sheet, which makes it non-porous, so all of this alcohol ink just sits right on top. If I used regular paper, the ink would just absorb instantly and you wouldn't be able to get all of the cool effects that you can get with alcohol ink. And then, of course, you also need some alcohol ink. I am using a few different types. I have the most of the Tim Holtz Ranger alcohol ink. You can also use pearls or the alloys or mix-ins. Any of those will work for these flowers. Another must-have for this is the blower. I'm using the Tim Holtz blower, but you have to have something that you can have a lot of control over, and I just find this works the best with this blower. And I am working on a Tim Holtz glass media mat, which just makes the cleanup so much easier. When I'm working with the ink, I am diluting it and able to move it around a bit more with isopropyl alcohol. This you can just get at your local pharmacy, and it's a pretty cheap material, and I do usually use a fair bit of it. I put mine into this little dropper so I can easily control and drip out how much I need. And if you are using any of the pearls or metallics alcohol inks, you need to instead use blending solution. If you use isopropyl alcohol when you're using those mix-ins or the pearls, it gets really clumpy, where if you're using the blending solution, it won't do that. So for this first flower, I'm just using regular inks, so I'm using isopropyl alcohol. So now back to the process of creating this flower. I started by adding 2 drips of yellow into the center, and that was the center of my flower. From there, I let that dry completely, and then I started layering 1 drip of the pink just right along the outside edge, and I would then also add some isopropyl alcohol around that, and then use the blower to blow outwards so that puddle of ink and isopropyl alcohol would mix together and then blow out. Like I said, these are very abstract looking flowers. You just kind of get the overall feel of a flower. It's not perfect, so don't be too hard on yourself. And this does take a little bit of practice to get down. I just practice making the petal shape and just practice that a few times. When you're using the blower on the petals, I would always keep the blower facing outwards and pushing the alcohol ink outwards. When you start moving it back and forth and on the sides, it can get a little weird. But I mean, try whatever works for you. Like I said, this might take trying out a few times. But let me know in the comments what technique of this works for you. With this flower, I started with 6 original petals, and then I went on top of that and added some more petals. So I added 6 additional petals, and that's what really gave this flower a really full look. And this also gives it some more layers. Now I'm working on the center. I really like using the white mixative on the center. It's a little bit thicker than the other alcohol inks, so it sits on top really well. And I'm using the back side of one of my thinner paintbrushes to add all of these dots. When you're adding your dots, just go all over. Don't spend too much time worrying about where it'll go. The look of them being all over and not perfectly organized is really the look we're going for. So other than just the white, I also wanted some yellowish orange dots as well as some pink dots. And to make those really stand out, I mixed it in with the mixative. This makes those colors a little more opaque, and they sit on top of the alcohol ink nicely. And here is my first finished flower. This one really didn't take too long. I didn't add a ton of things to. I'd say in total maybe 15 minutes. But just take your time and work on your petals. The nice thing with alcohol ink is that you can add, after it's completely dried, you can still add some isopropyl alcohol to it and it will reactivate. Now I am creating another flower. Just this one, I wanted to add some leaves to it as well, and then I wanted to also try to add a few more smaller details. So with the leaves, I'm just kind of eyeballing where I would want them, and this is using the same technique that I did with the petals. So I grabbed a green and made a couple dots a little bit outside of the center, and then use some isopropyl alcohol to blend into it. I would say for every 1 dot of alcohol ink, I probably use at least 3 drops of isopropyl alcohol to blend it out with. That ratio also goes for the petals, because like I said, the leaves are a very similar technique to the petals. When I was first trying this technique out, I noticed that I would have little lines coming from all of my petals, and I think that's because I was blowing too hard. I'm not squeezing this blower the entire way. I'm doing fast little pumps of it to get it moving. This time I decided to make a purple flower because I thought it would go nicely with the shade of green that I made the leaves. And I started with my center being that white mixative. My idea for this was to have a lighter center and it would get darker towards the edge of the petals. And the purple color that I'm using is a pearl, so I am using it with blending solution instead of the isopropyl alcohol to blend it out with. So I'm still going with my ratio of 1 drop of alcohol ink for about 3 drops of blending solution. When you're using the pearls, make sure to mix it every time before you use it. Even when you had just used it, just give it a quick little shake, because the pearl powder in it starts to settle right away, and you'll notice it won't be as shimmery. Something else that could be fun when you are doing this technique is use these pearls and the white mixative on a black sheet of Yupo. It really pops and looks really cool against the black. I wanted to have a little bit more control with this flower and a little bit more defined petals. So I'm taking my time a little bit and really working on shaping my petals. By this I mean I want each petal to be more of a single blob, and I do this by adding a lot of the blending solution. If you're not able to make long flowy petals like this, you need to add more solution to it. And the cool thing with alcohol ink is that you can keep layering and layering, and you will see some of the layers behind each time you add another layer. So like with this leaf, I can still see that leaf behind it even though I'm working with the purple on top of it. and it gives it almost like a really thin, almost clear petal look, which I think is really cool. With this flower, I am going to use a paintbrush with it too. You can paint with alcohol inks and a paintbrush, and I've seen some really cool paintings that way. But I'm just going to use a paintbrush and dip it in my blending solution to just help define some of my areas a little bit more. I can also pick up more of the pigmented alcohol ink to add some more definition where I think needed on the petals and the leaves. As you can see, you get a totally different texture when you use the paintbrush than when you're just letting the ink flow naturally as it does. It's almost like little sketchier lines, and it almost looks textured, which can be really cool depending on your painting. I felt like I was adding these little white dots using the paintbrush for a really long time, but I really feel like the more the merrier with this. And again, they're all sporadic, not super planned out, and that's just how I like it. Thanks for checking out our video today, and if you try this technique, tag us so we can see it. Thanks for watching.